Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of Rhythm and Wit, a new podcast and video series that will discuss and explore the creative and artistic expressions of artists and performers in Oklahoma City and its neighboring cities, also known as the Greater Metro Area. My name is David Steele. I am a bass player, a music producer, a graphic designer, a photographer, and a film hobbyist. My co-host is Nicholas Campbell. Nick is a stand-up comedian, a singer, a songwriter, a guitar player, an electrical contractor, a husband, a father, and my best friend for over 20 years. In today's episode, we discuss comedy. We talk about some of our favorite comedians as well as some of our favorite funny movies. We also discuss how to get started in comedy, as well as some tips on writing jokes and dealing with failure on stage, also known as bombing. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel and podcast feeds to keep up with new episodes that drop every Friday. We hope you enjoy today's discussion, as we greatly appreciate your time and attention.
Can I give it a shot?
Sure.
Yeah. Hi, guys. Welcome to Rhythm and Wit with Dave and Nick. I'm Nick Campbell.
And I'm David Steele.
How's it going? Today we're going to talk about comedy, our experiences, and what we like. I want to start off with a few fun things. Okay? Top 5 favorite comics.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. I've got a list.
One of my favorites I grew up on that my mom liked, and she had like VHS cassettes of, was Louis Anderson. You remember Louis Anderson?
Yeah, I was like him.
Yeah, Life with Louis. He had that cartoon. He was also in Baskets, which was like really good, with Zach Galifianakis. I liked watching that, and then with the noise he would make.
It's life with likable, lovable, completely huggable. It's life with Louie.
You know, whenever he would play the kid, he would always sound like that. He always played really good characters, and I like that. He talked about family, and he was pretty clean. So that's one. Tommy Johnigan, he's like a road comic that I feel like nobody's ever heard of, you know? But he's like one of my favorites. Every line is a laugh, and he does a really good job of bringing his personality into his work, which is good. Chad Daniels, that's another good one. Chad Daniels, and then Sinbad.
Yeah.
Sinbad's like my favorite.
There was like a tape or something that we had back in the day. That was, I think, probably one of my earliest memories of kind of watching comedy specials was Eddie Murphy Raw. I mean, that was probably one of the, I think the early ones for me. I mean, Dane Cook back in the day was like, I don't know what it was about him. He was just so animated and so like, and just so funny. And we quoted all of his stuff for years growing up. I mean, like him. I mean, in him and like the early Kevin Hart special. Like, I mean, I think that the first time I'd ever heard of Kevin Hart was on Comedy Central Presents before anybody knew who he was. Yeah. And like that was one of the ones that we would joke and we would repeat each other. You, me, and John would just walk around, walk to the store. And I just have this one memory of us walking to the store and we were just telling each other Kevin Hart jokes when, like, nobody else even knew who Kevin Hart was at the time. And it's just now he's massive.
Well, Comedy Central Presents was a huge. That's how you got your comedy.
I think that's really kind of helped grow comedy so much in like the, late 90s and into the early 2000s for sure when we were watching it. But I remember, I mean, for me, especially from those days, I made a list of a bunch of comics that that really resonated with me in those days was, and I'll just list them off: Dane Cook, Pablo Francisco, Kevin Hart, George Lopez, Dave Chappelle, Dave Attell, Louis Black, Mitch Hedberg, Dimitri Martin, Jeremy Hotz, who we saw in Colorado, Nick Swardson. But honestly, I think probably, and this is probably my favorite comic of all time, it's got to be Chris Rock.
Oh, really?
I think, yeah. Like, I think that he's probably... And he's... Not only as a comedian, stand-up, I really enjoy all of his stuff. It's like his influences come from Eddie Murphy and going back to Richard Pryor. I mean, it's like an evolution of that style of... I mean, like I said, Eddie Murphy's probably, up there as well. So it's that kind of style. And I think it's just... And Dave Chappelle, I think, is one of my favorites from back in the day. I just... Everything he did for a while, I was just glued to. It was like, especially the show and all that. I mean, today, there's a ton of great people out there, and there's so much more, I think, than there was, especially the accessibility of it all.
Well, yeah, I feel like it's almost oversaturated.
Yeah.
But I love comedy so much that I'm like, it's like wading in water you love. So it's just like, yeah, dude. I now, as far as feeling like you're gonna eke out a position in it, I don't really care as far. I'm still gonna do this craft, but it looks tough to be seen right now as a comic because there's so many options. Which is great. Dry Bar Comedy, which is a show dedicated to clean comedy, which I think is really good. And that's something I wanted to bring up. The thing about Whitesboro, Texas, I had a show at Whitesboro last night, and they wanted clean comedy, kind of. Until they realized they didn't. Yeah. And
it's like that. Well, that's maybe not that funny.
Yeah. Well, I went up there. I do clean set. That's just who I am. I have a few kind of things that can get dirty, but I most of my stuff is clean. So I did my clean set, and as a host, you should do mostly clean, and just kind of bring... Your job really isn't to be funny, it's to bring the crowd around for the people who are funny. The host just kind of introduces everybody, keeps the ball rolling. So I try to focus on that, but luckily, I was able to do my work, and the jokes hit. They hit really well, Old people love me. But the next comics, they were pretty, not risque really, but there was, the first comic, she was Teresa Crump, very funny. She talked about the bed, and you can look.
Universal, we've all done it.
Yeah, it's like figuratively and literally. But but she did that, and and you can see people, you can see the people who are affected by it. I like watching the crowd. Yeah. When somebody else is going on to see how they're reacting. But she went on, and she got a lot of good laughs. A few people were kind of wincing, but not a big deal. And then Jeremy Link went up, the producer for the show. He did a great job. But he had a little bit of risque stuff. Not really, but it's just kind of it's pretty fun. But then Brandon Kilo, same thing. He works here. He does producer shows here. So he did a set where it was just his stuff, which is, he's not clean. Yeah. But he made it clean. He did a great job on as much clean as it, so less profanity and all that.
Yeah, but that's something I thought I just thought of was like, they know what this show is. So, any comic that you're going into, you need to be able to adjust, right? It's like there's got to be a level of flexibility where you are interacting with the audience, and if you see a crowd that you're thinking, oh, these guys probably aren't going to laugh at this thing, or I shouldn't say this one, but I think that there's probably something going on up there where it's like, well, I want to throw this one in just to see. How far can I push it?
Yeah, Lenny Van Horn was the headliner. Yeah. And he killed it, man. Yeah. And he had a lot of his stuff was risque. And so what I noticed is, and what he mentioned, he's like, comics will just try to see, even if it is a clean show, you throw out something that's a little, and then if they bite, then
you can kind of maybe push a little further.
Then the next comic goes up, and then the next, and so eventually it kind of gets to that point where it's like, okay, well they're accepting of it, and we're giving it to them, and they're laughing, but then you could see by the time Lenny went up, there was this old lady I kept keeping an eye on, and she would laugh at the clean stuff, and as soon as it got nasty, she would look mad, Yeah. They ended up walking two couples or something like that, or a group of, because somebody had brought their kid because she thought it was 13 and under or something. So anyways, they were highly disappointed. But out of 140 people, 4 people being upset, it's not too bad.
That's a good crowd, though.
Yeah. It's a great crowd, man. We did a great job, and it was fun, man.
This is the interesting thing for comedy versus music. We've talked a little bit about this on the last episode or previous episodes, but it's like music, you just perform what you practice. I mean, there's no really changing it. I mean, you can do something slightly different, but there's no real interaction as much as comedy, where it's like you can literally talk to people in the crowd and like interact with them directly if you want to, or but you definitely read the crowd and bounce back and forth and kind of adjust your set and adjust your performance based on what their reaction is. Whereas music, it's more of a feeling, like you kind of, if people are into it, if they're really enthusiastic, then you're going to be more enthusiastic as a performer. So there is a give and take there too, or a kind of a symbiotic relationship. But with comedy, it's much, much more prevalent. I think that's interesting.
Man, that's been the hardest part, is trying to read a crowd. I think that's mostly what comedy is. You can do the jokes, living in the jokes, doing it like a scene, feeling the emotions and leading with your attitude. But if the people aren't reacting, I mean, the more they react, the better you can work with them. I feel like in music, if it got too tough, like if the crowd wasn't in it, you could just turn yourself off and play with your guys.
You can just you could still get into it without, even if there is no audience, you could still have a great time by yourself.
We did. Remember when we played the castle?
Well, I played many shows where there's maybe one or two people that, I mean, they're probably my significant other or my best friends or whoever that are there that have already seen me play. And it's just like, well, and I think that's something that I think a lot about with comedy. I mean, just because I've never tried stand-up. Maybe one day I will. We'll see. But I think a lot about it. I love the craft of it. I like trying to understand it and talking to you about it and talking to other people about it. But something I think a lot about in terms of music and especially comedy. But with the only way to really rehearse, I mean, with music, you come into a space, your rehearsal space, you practice the songs, you kind of get them down tight. And then you go out and you can perform them, and hopefully as tight as you did when you rehearsed. But with comedy, you can't really do that. There is no rehearsal. I mean, you can stand in front of a mirror, or you can stand in front of your significant other or whoever, your friend, and say, let me tell you these jokes to you and see if they're funny. I mean, that's much different than when you're on stage. I mean, you kind of have to be on stage in front of people to even practice comedy, I feel like. So is that something that you do you think a lot about? 'Cause I know that one thing I wanted to bring up was kind of getting started in comedy. I mean, maybe this is something that I'm curious about, because I mean, not that I want to be a stand-up comedian, but I mean, I might, like I said, I'm interested to maybe try it one of these days. So what is a good way to get started? I mean, I know that when it comes to my mind, if I wanted to get started, I would just go out on a Monday night to We're All Friends open mic with Caleb Collins, a good friend of ours. Great open mic every Monday. Starts at 7. Get there earlier than that if you want to perform, because it fills up.
Yeah, it fills up fast.
So I would say maybe get there 6:30 at least if you want to perform. But it's a great mic. Go check it out. Monday nights, every Monday at Fairweather Friends. But that's a good way to get started, right? Just show up at an open mic and try it out, because every week there's always somebody there that's never done it before. They're like, oh, I want to try this. So that's a good way. But what other ways that would you think, or any tips that maybe you have for people that want to get started in comedy?
Oh, sure. So not all open mics are created equal. So the Fairweather mic is a really good mic because people are there for it. They're listening. They're supportive. They clap, unless you're just being all out an asshole, which I've seen that happen there too. But they squash it real quick, which is nice, And Caleb does a really good job of keeping everybody going. So he's a really good host. So that's a really good open mic to go to try stuff that you want to know and see if it works. There's open mics like JJ's Alley and like Grand Royale. you're there, but the people are kind of just having drinks and hanging out. But that's a different way you got to exercise.
Mm-hmm.
You got to exercise your jokes with distractions and trying to connect with a crowd when they don't want to connect with you. So you're working those muscles. But as far as starting out, just spend 30 minutes to an hour writing something that you think is funny, try to collect stuff, and then go up to a mic, open
StandUpMics.com.
I think that's it. My buddy Leo Mendes kind of runs that, and it has a list of all the open mics in OKC.
That's a good resource.
It is, man. It's a huge help, because, and he always is changing it. He also has lists for Tulsa too, and a few other surrounding areas. So it's a pretty good deal. But go find you a mic. I think everybody should do stand up just to see. It's like jumping out of a plane. Even if you'll be scared, you'll get embarrassed, but as soon as you're done, you're like, I did it. Yeah. And it's the success is in the doing.
Yeah, because you had mentioned something a minute ago I wanted to touch on, was just writing jokes in general. I mean, obviously you can't just, you could if you think you're funny enough, there are people out there that's like, oh, I can just get up in front of people and just talk and be funny. I mean, some people can, some people think they can and they cannot. But yeah, you should probably have some bits, have some ideas. So what are some approaches when you got started writing jokes? What kind of approaches do you do, or other people can do, or things that you might want to try? And also, maybe, can you talk about when you find a joke and you try it out and you get feedback, and how do you edit those jokes, and how do you kind of make them better and kind of progress them into more practiced bits and material?
This is one of my favorite reasons for doing comedy and to like writing and showing it to a crowd with music versus comedy. With music, you gotta write the song, you gotta practice it, you gotta get it all prepared, then you bring it up, and then you play, and then you see if people like it. With comedy, you write a joke or have a funny thought, you kind of, shape it up a little bit, and then take it out there, and if it works, it's way quicker feedback. You get that feedback right then, and it's very apparent. Like, it's so funny because it's like either it goes good and you get this real huge like, oh, I gotta laugh, or it goes bad and it feels like a swat on the hand, But the data that you get from the audience, and sometimes might not be good. That's why you gotta try it a bunch of times. If you tried at JJ's and at Grand Royale, you're not gonna get a lot of feedback. But you're gonna get the practice to put it under your tongue. But at like doing a Bricktown Comedy Club or at Fairweather Friends, you're gonna get a good feedback, But you might not have it under your tongue as good. So it's about presentation as well. So it's tricky. It's fun to kind of see what worked, and eventually what happened to one of mine is it evolved. Like in the middle of one of my sets, I forgot a piece, but then I just switched things around by accident, and it made the joke better. Just because it felt like a conversation.
And you kind of take that, you're like, oh, I like the way that went, so then you start doing that every time.
Yeah. And so I record all my sets, which is huge.
Yeah,
because
that's a good way to improve for sure. I do that with music. I think that's huge with music for performing, and I would tell any musician, if you're listening, like, record as much of your sets as you can. Even if you don't want to share it, just so you can watch it and be like, and see what you did and see how it went. So, and that's invaluable, I think, and I'm sure it is even more so with comedy, because you can actually hear what you did and how you can change it and things like that.
Well, you're 100%. What I also recognized is sometimes my memory isn't as good as what happened, and I'll beat myself up, and then I'll go back and look at the video, and I'll be like, oh, it wasn't that bad. But I've also looked at it and been like, oh, it wasn't that good.
You're like, that felt a lot better.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I killed. And you get up there, it's like, oh, no, it wasn't that good. Yeah. But that's the thing, and then you get to see the truth of it, and then you get to accurately edit.
Right, yeah. That's a good,
with music, too, recording yourself playing a song just in the room, because when you're doing the action, you can't give it full attention. So I feel like that's there's so much stuff to take in, and you're filtering stuff, you're watching the crowd, you don't know what's going on up there. So that's a huge one, record, and then have a little grace with yourself when you're watching it. But as far as writing goes, morning pages.
Yeah.
You do morning pages too, don't you?
Yeah, morning pages are kind of a journaling exercise where you write. It's kind of to me, I look at it like a, not like normal journaling. You kind of write whatever's in your head at the moment. I mean, it's like free flowing, free thinking, and it's kind of I've heard it described as like brain vomit. It's just like anything that's going on in your life. I mean, you end up writing what's important, what you're thinking about a lot, and it's very helpful to get it out of your head, to me, and get it onto a page. And it's very therapeutic. I mean, I use it for all of, a year as just therapy, just to work through thoughts and feelings. But that's something that we've both been doing for a while, just to, I think it's good for anyone, mental health, but also you can use it as a creative tool as well.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think as far as practicality, you just sit down, you put on a timer for 20 to 30 minutes, and you just write stream of conscious. Don't pick up your pen and just go. Try not to be disturbed. Try to put yourself in a place where you can just do that. You do that for 20 to 30 minutes. Even if you're writing, I'm writing right now, and I don't know what to write. It always leads to something else.
Yeah, you'll start. Because there are days where I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. What am I? I mean, you literally write what's in your internal dialogue, and then but I've also written very profound things where I'm like, oh my God, where did this even come from? This is great.
But that doesn't happen if you don't show up.
Yeah,
so
you gotta
that's a big
do it.
Part
and
of
that's a big part of the morning pages is doing it every morning. That's what it's called. I mean, ideally, you can do it any time of day, but ideally it's in the morning, and it just helps me go throughout my day, and you don't have those thoughts. I mean, if something's really bothering you and you just write it all out first thing in the morning, you're not going to be thinking about it as much all day. So I think it's very good for just feeling better and all of that. So
it frees up bandwidth.
Yeah,
that's what
exactly.
I like. I mean, it gets and I might not even. I'll write for 30 minutes in the morning, and then I have some joke exercises I do just to kind of get my brain rolling, and then I might not even. I'll do that for an hour, and I might not even get anything out of it.
Yeah.
But what it does is it gets rid of all the crap in my brain, and then while I'm walking around throughout the day, I'm like picking stuff up. So it's a good practice. It's the main practice I use now.
For writing.
And then as far as editing, it's just go up, record it, like you said, take it home.
I think something I thought about doing, and I've tried this a little bit with the morning pages and just journaling, but it's like writing and trying to exercise your kind of, what is the word, word association. Even like you just like write a word or think of a word or a topic and just write everything that comes to your mind that is associated with that or not. It doesn't matter really, because it's just word association and thought association. I think that's something, and maybe there are better ways to do it. Like I said, I just would just write a word and just write a bunch of stuff that relate to it and try to. I mean, I think that a good approach for comedy, and I'm sure when it gets into like improv, it's just thinking, being on your toes and thinking, being quick and being able to just rattle off something without thinking much about it. And I think that's a skill that you have to kind of cultivate. I mean, a little bit. Is there anything like that you do? Or is that something you've thought about at all?
I do. That's one of the exercises in the morning. There's you write down. I use a random word generator.
Okay.
And I'll grab like 5 or 6 nouns. Yeah. Just off of that, and then I'll write the word at the top. Let's say it's goal, and then you just write down what other meanings of that word could be. So goals as in trying to reach a goal. Goal as in a soccer goal. Goal, and then phrases too. So like made a goal, goaltending. Okay. And then what happens is you can create jokes off of that, but really it's just a way for you to kind of practice associating. And then you can do an association list, which is just going down and just write, like you said, just write everything.
That's something that I think. And then, I think that for me, it's like that's where I I can do well when I'm writing anything, like say whatever it is. It's like I'll take a lot of time to carefully craft it and things like that. But it's like that's great, but you can't do that if you're in a situation where you need to be quick. That's not really that helpful. And so that's something I try to get better at, I think, and try to improve on just for myself. So I'm sure other people could do that as well.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's tons of different things. If you have any tips, let us know, because we'd like to. I'm looking for stuff like that.
I'm still learning too.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Bring it on. Yeah.
If anybody's got things like that they do, that'd be cool resource.
Something I learned, a couple of things I learned that's been really helpful in just doing art and also just being a person is don't worry about the outcomes. This is something that I read in the comic toolbox, but this guy, he does a lot of different art and he does a lot of different teaching. And what he explains is like all of your procrastination and all of like your anxiety comes from the fear of outcome. So you're like, oh man, if I go up here and I don't do good, or if these people don't like me, it's like it takes you out of the moment and you can't even be your authentic self. And so you're not even giving it your 100%, and you don't even realize it because you're fear-based. And it's hard to tell people, don't be afraid.
Yeah.
And you should, there's nothing wrong with, you can be authentically afraid in that moment. But try not to fear the outcome as much as just like because you can't control it. It's all about, you can't control the outcome. All you can do is control your preparation. The show isn't even itself. It's not important. What's important is everything you did to get up to that show. Did I go to every mic I could? Did I try to host? Did I write every day? If you did all those things, and you can walk up into that moment and go, I did everything I did. Yeah, I could. I prepped. And so that one helps me a lot. Is don't worry about the outcomes. Just enjoy the moment that you're in. And then that's a big one. And then there was another one that I learned yesterday. I have a little mantra, kind of. It's really just like a thought that I have, but it helps me a lot. I tell myself before I go up, it's like, hey man, everything's all right, everything's good. And then I'll think of my mom. Like she had a certain way to laugh. Me and her used to pick on each other. And so like before she passed, she came over to a house that I was working on, and she was like she just got back from the doctor, and she was like, hey, the doctor said I lost 5 pounds. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I can't even tell. And then she does this thing whenever she would laugh, but she would also like hit me. Or she'd be like, ah, like one of those. Oh, yeah. I love that. That was like, so I remember that moment, and I go, I'm going to do that to them.
It just puts you in a kind of happy place. It just kind of puts you in a positive mindset, I think.
It reminds me why I'm doing it. Yeah. And it's fun I want that.
That's important, I think, to always remember the reason why we do any of this. I think this is something I've learned recently and try to think about when it comes to the reason why we do what we do as creators, or anything that you do that you're passionate about and that gives you purpose. But a lot of people, I think that we all have to figure it out for ourselves, but you have to figure out why it is that we do, not so much what it is. Like if you're a guitar player, for instance, and you love guitar and you love performing and you love the fact that people get to listen to your music and it resonates with them and all of that, and then you lose the ability to play guitar, what do you do then? It's like your whole life is gone, your whole reason for doing things. You're not able to do it, but if you remember the reason why you did it in the first place, you can go back to that and find a new way, or rekindle that purpose in a different way, and not worry so much about your life is over because you can't play guitar anymore. I think that's important to try and recognize. And like you said, I think it's whatever it is. If you love performing, try to realize why it is that you love that, or love creating art, or doing whatever you do.
Oh, I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, I think it's something that something that I've learned and kind of try to keep in mind. And I think it's important.
What's your why?
I think and that's something that I've been trying to discover. I mean, I think a lot of people don't really know why. You just kind of do what you do and you love it, and then, you associate, I love, say you're a painter, I love painting because it's makes you feel good for some reason, but you got to figure out why it is that makes you feel good. I think it's not just because painting makes you feel good. There's a deeper reason. I think that we all have to do some exploring to figure that out, but I think it's important to stay true to that, because if you stay true to that, you'll never be lost. I mean, you can always go back to the actual reason why it is. I think for me, I want to help people. I mean, if I can, I think a lot of my life is I sometimes I feel like I can't help, or I don't know how to help people. And that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast, is because I want to share the things that I've learned. And I think that's the only way that any of us can get better is by teaching each other, you know. I mean, what else is there? I mean, I've learned so much from the internet. I think of like YouTube and all this stuff that it's invaluable resources and information of people sharing what they've learned and what they've accomplished in life. And so I've learned so much from that, and I think, I can do that too. Maybe I can take some of these things that I've learned and put into play into my life and share them with someone else, and it could inspire someone else to do something great. I mean, that's really what I like to think a lot about. I mean, think about with music. I mean, nowadays when I'm getting older, is like, finding these younger artists, or even the same age or whoever, that's a songwriter, creator, that I have so many skills that I can put towards that and like help raise them up. And it's like, I can showcase what you're capable of with songwriting and help you achieve, your dream, which in terms helps me achieve my dream of like helping people. I think, I mean, that's what I like to I hope that that's true. I think it is. I mean, but that's what I strive to be and what I see myself doing. And so that's something, and maybe it'll evolve even deeper than that in some way. I just don't know yet. I've been thinking a lot about it.
Well, something that James Clear says is 1% better every day. Mm-hmm. Because you're still moving forward. At the end of the year, you're 365% better. Yeah. Which is a huge, huge change. It's funny that you said to help people. I mean, you've always been helpful since we were growing up,
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't know. I mean,
if I asked you for it, you were there, Mm-hmm. And then for most people, you've been that way.
For my friends, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think about it, like I think that whenever I see so many people on the street, and then, the beggars or whatever, they're out there, asking for money, asking for help, and it's like I see them and like I'm trying to pay my bills. I can't afford to help you right now. I wish I could, but I don't know what. You see these people struggling on the street, and it's like, man, how can I be actual help? I mean, it's tough, but it's like you can only do so much. So
it hurts because you're like, is my help effective?
Yeah,
because it's like I can give them $5, but
right.
I mean,
actually gonna
it's mostly drugs. It's mostly
if they're gonna, and I think there are
issues,
and with that, and that's a big thing. And for me is, I think a lot about the people on the street and the people that struggle and how to be of help. And I think that there are tons of bigger things that I could be involved in. I want to be more involved with. And solving the problem as a whole, whereas, just giving a person $1. I mean, maybe that could be huge for them too. If you think about, that could be a highlight of their day. I mean, and maybe help them keep going to the next day. I mean, you just never know how you and what impact you'll have on anyone that we meet, no matter what it is, or who they are.
I always try. I mean, I'm sure you do too, but like try to come to things with kindness, and just like take myself, like try not to take it personal. Sometimes, I'm a little more selfish as far as my why. I know why I like to make people laugh.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, my I was adopted by my grandparents, but I lived with my mom at the beginning, and she was a single mother, and it was like I always wanted to make her laugh because she seemed like it was tough. Yeah. And then our whole family did that. Our whole family were cut up, so we'd all make fun of each other and like joke around, and so it was a language in our house. When things got tough, you could tell a joke, you'd get out of trouble. So there's like a lot of like real life risks.
That's something with comedy. I mean, comedy to me, it's like comedy makes you think, whereas like tragedy makes you feel. I mean, those are the two, like if you go back to Shakespeare or whatever, the origins of kind of performance and storytelling are, very, very early days. But those are the two styles of plays, right? Comedy or tragedy. But the thinking, the comedy, and I learned that when I was younger, and I've always thought about it, and it's like comedy, it puts things into a perspective where it's like you can laugh at it. It's like even if it is something terrible, like if you're in a bad way in your life or your family or, struggling to make ends meet, if you can laugh about it, you can move on and move forward, I think. And so it's a good thing that's one very powerful thing for comedy I think about a lot, is just the ability to make how it affects your mind and the way you look at things. So that's great. I mean, even like you said, even though you say it's selfish, I think that it's not, because making other people laugh affects them in a way that you don't even realize or can't realize, really. I mean, you don't know how they're gonna go home and think about their life a little bit differently, hopefully.
Well, also it's a way to find someone who identifies with your plight. Yeah. So, because if they can laugh at that situation, that means they also live through it.
Yeah, exactly. Because all art is, if you see a piece of art that you like, I mean, that's automatically something that you can relate to. And so it's and like you said, I mean, I just thought of sometimes people tell a joke about like, oh, I'm depressed, or have something wrong with my mental health, and they joke about it. And then other people that might have that same thing, like, oh, they're depressed too, but they're out there still trying to, make themselves better and keep going. And so I think that's really helpful and empowering for the viewer to see, like you said, they're going through the similar thing. Yeah. And it's that's very good for people to see that they're not alone and they're not the only ones struggling. Yeah, and then they can also laugh at it. Yeah, and you can, and that, like I said, even going back to, that's going to change their daily life in a way, hopefully. It's also a way to deliver ideas that nobody wants to think about, right. Like if you're a liberal, maybe, or you're conservative and you're playing to the other side, if you can make the joke funny more than it is upsetting to the person, then you force them to laugh, and then it creates this, like, it almost like kind of just sneaks that idea in there. Yeah. But once it's in there, you can kind of play with it, mull around. You're like, oh, maybe I get it. Maybe I understand this person, because it all comes down from. And maybe even if they don't agree with it, they can see it. See perspective. Side, yeah. So I mean, comedy is a great way to kind of do that. Yeah, I like that a lot. Going back to real quick on the kind of our favorite comics and things like that, but what are some of your biggest inspirations? Why, I mean, besides the fact that you've always loved making people laugh and just being funny, you've always been just the jokester, the class clown. But what kind of, is there any artists or comics that you've watched and maybe when you were younger and you saw someone on TV and you're like, oh, I think that could be me. I could do that. Like it's like, I think I'm a comedian. Is there anyone or anything like inspiration wise that you can recall?
there's a few milestone people, you know. Louis Anderson was one,
Right.
so that was like the one where I was like, oh, I want to do that. But I didn't. I was too scared. You know, as a kid, you don't think. You just start making people laugh around you.
Yeah,
and you're
but
like,
that's
oh, that
still
works.
like you're inspired not to per se be on a stage in front of people, but you're inspired to make other people laugh.
Oh yeah, that's
general,
Louis Anderson.
yeah.
Another one is like I said, Lori and my mom were. They were just jokesters. They were just fun people, and that's what they did. And then there was a point when I found Joe Rogan before he was this like whatever, this icon of the alphas. I don't know. I like him still. I don't like him as like I used to.
I mean, he's a very smart man.
He is, dude.
No
He's really good. But back in the day, he thought in ways that were foreign to me, but also made sense. He used his humor to kind of like tweak that for me. Yeah, but
really
he was one where I was like, okay, you can have thoughts that are a little bit more complex, and he was able to express it in a very accurate way, you know, and then also talk about his. So that's what it feels like. So that was one. But yeah, for the most part, I just
well, another one. Freak, I forgot.
What?
I take it all back. My favorite comedian is hands down like Jim Carrey. He's like,
oh, nice.
When I was a kid, like Ace Ventura, The Mask, you know, those movies were, I mean, he was an inspiration to me in a way. I think he's probably one of the funniest people I've ever seen, you know, like, to me personally. So it's like
Will Ferrell.
But,
you know,
yeah, Will Ferrell
guaranteed.
That was something. That's a good transition into movies. I think comedy movies, like that's something that we loved. Comedy, like watching these comedic films growing up. I mean, I remember we watched the crap out of The Wedding Singer.
Yeah, dude, that's my favorite. Any Adam Sandler movie.
He's a great inspiration as far as comedy and music, and just a performer. I think Wedding Singer, Wayne's World. I mean, we watched the crap out of those.
Yeah, dude, that was a good one.
So many of these old movies.
You're missing one, man. Yeah. You're missing like the one I know you by.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about? So what is it?
A Night at the Roxbury.
Yeah, dude, that was the jam, man. That was my favorite one.
My first ever screen name when I was probably like maybe 12 years old. I mean, AOL was just popping off, but it was inspired by A Night at the Roxbury with Will Ferrell and Chris Kattan, and the screen name was Club Hopper 05. And like I was literally like 13 years old. I didn't know, you know, only thing I knew about clubs were from that movie.
Yeah, dude.
But it was inspiring to me. I don't know. I loved it. And so that's definitely one of my favorite movies of all time, for sure.
I think it's funny when you're a kid, you don't recognize all of the comedy that's going on, but you still watch it.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's still funny.
Well, comedy movies are, I mean, they were massive, I think, in, you know, obviously going back to like Animal House and you know, like those, the National Lampoon movies were just, they popped off and like, turned it into a thing where it's like, oh my God, these are really popular and really good. And that kind of grew into so many movies in the 90s and leading up into early 2000s. I mean, I remember, I think one of the funniest movies I've ever seen in the theater was Super Troopers.
Oh, yeah.
And we went and saw that, and now, you know, we were whatever age, you know, our teenagers probably, and like, oh my God, I never laughed so hard in the theater watching that movie. And then, you know, and it's kind of sad because they're just not, I mean, they definitely don't make the money that they used to, but bringing up Will Ferrell, I mean, he had a string of just so many great comedic movies that, I mean, going for decades, honestly. I mean, the most recent one that I love was Eurovision.
Yeah, Eurovision.
That was so good. Oh my God, have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
You need to watch. That's like classic Will Ferrell. I mean, this feels like it should have been made around Talladega Nights era. Oh. I mean, that's because a lot of his newer stuff I don't get into, but that one was very, very good. But yeah, I love like Talladega Nights. What was it? Old School. That's one of the funniest movies.
That was a great
one. I think.
I want to talk about an act that blends both of our worlds that we grew up with. That I love more than anything. It was my first concert.
Yeah, mine too.
Tenacious D.
Right. Yeah. I was thinking about them recently because the music and the comedy. I mean, Jack Black, one of the funniest people on the planet. I mean, he's incredible. I mean, great singer, great songwriter, very funny, great performer. I mean, just all around, just oh my god, incredible.
And all of his comedy and his art is so kind-hearted, even if it's like gross. You know, it's like, or you know,
he just seems like a great person.
Crude.
I don't know. You know, he seems very genuine and kind. And
Kung Fu Panda is my by far one of my favorite sets of movies. Honestly.
I mean, but going back to like Saving Silverman, remember that? The early days of Jack Black when nobody really knew who he was.
What was that Nick Hornby movie adaptation?
Are you talking about High Fidelity?
High Fidelity.
Yeah,
that's where I first saw him.
That's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so much of that. I mean, that's such an inspiration for us growing up watching comedy movies and Comedy Central Presents and Comedy Central, the channel. I mean, that was my top 3 channels, right? It was Comedy Central, MTV, and Adult Swim or Cartoon Network.
Which is pretty much the same shit I watch now, so it's not much different.
Yeah.
I'm right on board with you.
But yeah, Comedy Central was like daily, always watching that Daily Show. I mean,
South Park.
South Park. So much stuff. I mean, that was like, I loved it. I think growing up, we always loved to laugh. We always joke around, make each other laugh. So that's always something that's been, a part of our lives. It's just, and I think it's important because this life is too short. You can't walk around and be serious all the time. You have to, take life as it comes and just laugh at it when, it doesn't go right. Because it never will go right, or, very rarely goes the way you want it to.
Yeah.
So it's very valuable thing.
We can have a little levity for yourself.
Right.
You don't have to take things as hard. Mm-hmm. And that really, I think, is what kills people faster is just stress and pressure and overwhelm.
And I think that's why I think comedy has, to me, in the, after the past few years that the entire world has gone through, I think comedy is particularly in Oklahoma City, and I'm sure all over the country and in the world maybe, but comedy is just, it's had this kind of a resurgence, I think, especially like I said, just speaking from the Oklahoma City perspective, it's like, it's never been like this here. There's shows every day. You can go see performers telling jokes and talking about life and joking about life, and it's, I think that's so important, and something people need right now is to move past all the trauma we've been through with the pandemic and everything. So I think that's why, it's people are drawn to comedy because they want to laugh and
it's relief.
Good.
Yeah, it eases some pressure. Mm-hmm. Like I said, and you're identifying with people who are saying the things that maybe you were thinking or didn't realize that other people are going through.
Right. Yeah.
And once you're not alone, you're like, oh, okay.
What is something that you, as a comic, a big part of it is failing or bombing, as they call it, right? Like on stage. So what are some tips that you would have for maybe a new person that's getting started, or even if you've been doing this for a while? Every comic has to deal with that, and how do you get over that? How do you move past it and keep going? How do you keep it from discouraging you from continuing when it happens?
It's tough. I think it's different for everybody, but for the most part, exposure. So the more you bomb, the more you realize, it's just a part of the process. There's that. Now, dealing with the emotions after you've bombed. When I first started, they used to hang with me for because what ends up happening is you have like cringe moments in your day where you're like, oh, I can't believe I said that.
You just think of it.
Yeah. Oh, that didn't work. Yeah. But then you start to see them, and you start to go watch other comedians, and even the good ones you start to watch. And like something I remember, I saw Mark Norman at Bricktown Comedy Club, and he did his set, but in the middle, he tried to do a new joke, and it didn't work, And you have to think of your set as tiny victories. So, if one joke didn't work, all right, well, that's that one joke. What did work? And I like to think of it being like grateful. Like, I write down 3 things I'm grateful for every morning. It kind of keeps me thinking in that way, because you can always there's an endless amount of negative stuff to look at. But if you sit down and focus on the good stuff, it makes you feel better and kind of overshadows the bad. So that's what I try to focus on what I did well and look at what maybe didn't work. And that's what you have to think of it, is like, oh, that just didn't work. And go, how can I make that better? Or do I not need this? That's what, and bombing is a part of it. Now, I think this is one of the reasons why I think everybody should do it. It develops a thick skin, because little rejections throughout your day from other people. I'm a salesman, basically, so they don't mean anything anymore. You can tell me, I'll walk out the door. I'm going to go home and play a video game,
I didn't remember.
But before, I used to take it personally. I'd be like, oh, why didn't they like my options? Why didn't they like me? It's like, they don't like you. It's just you didn't fit. Maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You don't want to work with somebody who you don't fit with.
Now you found out. It's like, now you know.
Now you know this audience doesn't like you. So now you're figuring that out. It's the same thing. So something I like to tell my kids. I like to tell them that, man, you don't learn anything when you win. You learn when you lose. And when I first started in the electrical trade with my dad, I was really scared to do any work because I thought I was going to mess something up. And he came in one day. He's like, "You haven't done anything?" He's like, "I don't know." He's like, "Listen, if you're not up, you're not doing anything." So screw it up, and then we'll fix it after, and then you'll learn.
Then you'll know next time how to do it without having to go back over it.
And it's the only way you learn. So you got to know that the pain is a part of the process, and it doesn't have to be pain. If you think about it in a way that's like, this is just me growing. Another thing that the comic toolbox, I like referencing this because he does a lot of stuff on being a person, as far as like how to deal with negative thoughts and editing in your art. So, and getting in your own way because of fear. That's a big one. What I learned is, like, if you're afraid, you can't give your 100%. You can't do as well as you should. You can't give everything to this joke because you're hanging back and you're not being your authentic self. So you have to give the joke a platform to be the best chance it can get, and the only way to do that is to go with it 100%. Otherwise, you're not even being you. So that's failing is, it's hard, man. Especially if you're a perfectionist.
I think it's something that we all deal with in any kind of creative endeavor, is the fear of yourself. I think, it's like we're so afraid of ourselves and showing ourselves for whatever reason. I mean, I think that a big part of life, and that we all need to do, is learn how to get over ourselves and not worry about what we look like or how we come off, because we are who we are. I mean, you are the product of all of your experiences. So it's important to get over yourself and to try not to think about it and just focus on the work and put it out there and keep doing it. Because like you said, if you're too afraid to even try, you're never going to get to where you want to be. So you have to figure it out and try to move forward and keep going.
Man, something I recognize too is nobody cares. Like, you can get up on stage.
We all put so much more.
If you flounder, they're just like, "Oh man, that was rough," and then you leave and you carry that with you, but nobody else thinks about you after that.
It's all in your head. You're the only one that's hanging on to it.
it's not doing you any good. Like I said, that's why you record. Then you go back and you go, "Oh, I can fix this. I can do this." If you're not recording, you're just going off from memory, and you can ruminate and like knock yourself down when you didn't even do that bad. The reality of it is nobody gives a shit. You know what I'm saying? I still work around guys I've been working around for a year that don't know a lot of my jokes, and they've been hearing them every time. They just aren't paying attention. And that's fine. It's not their responsibility. My job is to see what the crowd does, take that data home, fix things, and bring it back and try to do it again. It's science.
Scientific process.
So if you can take it's hard. If you can take your emotions out, and follow your sensibilities, it's probably the way to go. But also, I don't know. So it's like, I'm still learning too. I still feel it. If I go bomb, I'll go bomb at Grand Royale knowing damn well that it's not a good spot. And I'll still be like, why didn't I win them over? Why didn't I get them? It's just, all right, man.
But you have to, I think the only way to really get over it, you have to just learn to let it go and just, like I said, move forward. Think, don't worry about the past. Just think about what's happening right now. That's the only thing that really matters is this moment.
Well, you can't do anything about it either.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
It's gone. I mean, the past is gone. The future doesn't exist. So there's no point in even trying to think too much about that or, worry about that because it hasn't happened. That nothing's, there is no future until it's the present. So, I don't know. There's resources as far as like just, therapy or, just whatever you can do. Like I said, the morning pages, I think that's a big way to get the thoughts out and look at them not in your head and just like, oh, this is just words on a page now that it's out,
Well, after you write on the morning pages for so long, I reread I use mine for premises and stuff, but a lot of people will crush them up and throw them away. Right,
and that's, because that's kind of the thing is that you can't, to me, you have to look at it in a way that you can't edit yourself even from there because and the way to do it is to not even just to assume that no one else will ever read this, including yourself. I mean, if you want. And that's something that I do. I never reread my stuff.
Really?
I don't think that that's really the purpose, unless you are using it for, you can, of course, there's no one stopping you, but to me, it's like you said, just crumple them up and throw them away because it's if that purpose has been served, and then there's no real reason to hang on to them.
What I like about it, rereading them, is you get a bird's eye view.
Yeah, you can think about.
And I start looking at and seeing patterns in my thinking and who I am. I'm like, this is why I do this. And that's where I learned a lot about myself with the, me trying to make people laugh, how I was raised and all that stuff. It comes through in that. But also, if you write and you do it right without trying to edit yourself it shows you without your mask. And so you can really get down in the nuts and bolts of why things are bothering you or what's wrong. I live in a house full of like my wife and my kids. If they read it, that's their fault.
Yeah.
I tell them, I'm writing that I should, even just to feel what it feels like to write that going through my hands, like feeling the hate, feeling things. I don't hate my wife. Yeah. But I've written some stuff in there. And it's like, I can't believe she did this to me.
Our thoughts, we don't control our thoughts. Our thoughts just pop up. They're, and they're not who you are either. Those are just thoughts in your mind that appear. That's just like when you have intrusive thoughts, it's like things of, they're just literally, you don't mean to think them, but they just happen.
They just happen.
And so, and it's important to get that out and just to, like I said, the pages can help just get it out of your head in a way and into the real world, into physical space, and you can, it doesn't hang on anymore. But that's the reason why no one else should ever read your pages. They shouldn't, for sure. Yeah. And you should feel free to, say whatever you want in there because those are, that's just an extension of your mind in a way.
Well, I want to feel that emotion and write in that way. I want it to come out. I don't want to hinder my writing as a way of expression. So I have to write the bad with the good. Otherwise, that's me. Yeah. And if I feel that way and if I think that way. But something that helped me a lot is an example. When Mom passed a couple years ago or whatever, that's when I really started journaling. And I was like, man, why am I so angry all the time? Why am I so angry? And then I read through and I was like, oh, no, I'm not angry. I'm sad. And you go, oh, it's just a secondary reaction to what I actually am. I don't want people to see it. So it's like, that's the bird's eye view you get whenever you go back, because you're like, oh no, I almost killed a guy at Locke. You know what I'm saying? Like Locke Supply. But he started it. It's his fault. But I walk in, this guy's a jerk. I kind of just go, all right, I'm not gonna mess with this guy. I'm gonna go talk to this cashier. He tells me, come over here, man, I'll take care of you. And then he kind of treats me bad. And then I blew up, and I wrote about it, and I was like, oh, no, that wasn't... I wouldn't normally handle things like that, he was being excessively a jerk,
Yeah.
which was, But I looked at it and was like, oh no, that was just me being sad, and he caught me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But he also had a bad attitude. I'm not giving him everything.
But we all have stuff we have in our lives that no one realizes. I mean, his mom might have died too.
Yeah, you don't know, dude.
Who knows?
We're just atoms bumping up against each other.
Yeah. So.
Well, do you want to go over? Yeah. So I've got So there's a really cool thing going on. Brandon Kilo's putting on a roast show for himself. It's his birthday, September 15th, which also happens to be Iris's, my daughter's birthday.
Oh, okay.
So I won't be there, but but it's going to be a great show. I mean, hell, man, there's so many comics going that are local killers. So it's going to be really cool to see.
And that's in Norman, isn't it? At Up Together, 7 p.m.
7
Friday.
p.m. on Friday. You can get those tickets. That's going to be a good show. And then that Saturday, September 16th, I have a show put on by Adrian Corwin, and we got a bunch of good comedians on there too. It's at Dr. Terps in Midwest City, September 16th at 8 p.m. So that's going to be a fun one. And then the following weekend, there's this huge Funniest Comic in OKC at Glamour. It's a new spot, but they're trying to do this Funniest Comic competition. I'm not really into competitions as much as I just want to get up there and get exposure and practice.
Get up there and tell people.
But there's a $500 win if you get it. And so that one's happening the 21st to the 24th. So it's like a whole weekend. It's almost like a little, tiny festival at this one spot.
Good.
And you kind of watch all these comedians battle it out, and it's going to be, I'm going to be a part of it as well as pretty much every other comedian in Oklahoma City. But that's
good. That's a good lineup if you want to get the taste of everyone in one weekend.
Yeah. But I'm on the 23rd show, so that's going to be a good one. And that's pretty much what I've got coming up here in these next few weeks. So
sounds good. So I've got a big project that's coming out September 22nd. Stolen Cable will be releasing our full-length LP. It's called Stolen Cable by Stolen Cable. 12 songs. There's album artwork that we have. It's gonna be launching September 22nd. It's already in the launch window in the canon. It's ready to fire. So. Yeah, check that out. Be on the lookout. I'll be posting about it. And we do have a special video message from the songwriter of 11 of the 12 songs. And here it is from Josh Bartrug, all the way from Kyoto, Japan.
Oh, hello. My name is Josh from the hit band Stolen Cable. You've caught me out at the river writing a new song, but I got important news special for you on the Rhythm and Wit podcast. Stolen Cable debut album, self-titled, will be out September 22nd. It'll have all your favorites, including our single Greater Metro Area, along with other fan favorites like Running from Archons in the Afterlife, She Wants to Dance, and Family Guy Funny Moment compilations. Hope all is well with everyone out in the great state of Oklahoma. Cheers from Kyoto. I can't bear to stand the thought of me losing you in someone else's arms today. The fair amount of instinct goes away. Maybe Dave will chop off the video here, I don't know.
Thanks, Josh, for that special message. We love you. We hope you're doing well. Check it out. September 22nd. Stolen Cable everywhere. Spotify, Apple Music, all that jazz. We'll have maybe some little videos for a couple of the songs. We're trying to figure that out, but we're really excited about this project. I mean, we've worked real hard on it, and excited for y'all to hear it. So check it out when it comes out, September 22nd, Stolen Cable. So thanks for watching. This has been episode 2 of Rhythm and Wit with Dave and Nick. We really appreciate everyone for following the Instagram page and just being on this journey with us. We hope you continue to check us out, and like I said before, we have an email address, rhythmandwit@gmail.com. We want to hear from you if you've got anything that you want to talk about, any topics or any questions or anything.
Silliness.
Yeah, just hit us up, because we definitely want to be interactive with you all and involved in the community. And we're going to, starting I think next week, we'll have a guest on. We don't have that figured out quite yet, but we're hopefully, if not, it'll be us too again. We'll have a topic ready. So thanks again, and we hope to see you for the next one.
Thanks, guys. I'm an electrical contractor. My favorite day is when I got my first van. And I know it's supposed to be when your kids are born, but my van wasn't a happy accident, you know? Some people got some happy accidents out there. But the thing is, it's hard to get a van, right? You gotta save up a bunch of money. You gotta outfit the van, right? You gotta buy the candy. It's easy to make a kid. You can make a kid anywhere. You can make a kid in that back bathroom. I made mine in Bed Bath & Beyond. In the Beyond part.